The rest is easily told. There was a great split among the chosen people. Many gave up the faith, Drebber, Stangerson among them. John Ferrier's fortune had made Drebber a rich man. But for some reason, he and Stangerson stuck to each other's company and set off to travel together. They were rich and I was poor, but I dogged them. I followed them across 2 continents. Sometimes I nearly caught up with them. Other times I lost the trail for long stretches. But always, I kept going. Always.
Just how long has this business been going on?
20 years. 20 years. And eventually I tracked them here, in London.
Where you obtained employment as a cab driver?
Wherever they went, I was always at their heels. At first I planned to surprise them. I reckoned they thought I was dead years before. But they somehow got wind of me. They were cunning. Never went out alone. Hardly ever after nightfall. And I thought it was all up. I knew I had no chance against the 2 of them together if they were on guard.
But they got careless. Drebber had taken to drink.
It wasn't only the drink. In the end, it was a woman that did for him. I liked that. It was fitting. I'd sat in my cab and watched when the 2 of them were thrown out of that boarding house. I knew why. And I sat and watched again when Drebber went back after that pretty face and her brother lashed into him in the street. And I tell you, I enjoyed that. I waited till the boy had finished with him. And I drove up to where Drebber was lying in the gutter.
Charpentier's cab. I didn't believe him.
Now, Drebber didn't recognize me. He was practically out on his feet from drink and the thrashing he'd had. He asked me to take him to his hotel.
But you didn't. You took him to an empty house in the Brixton Road.
I'd found it weeks before. I knew I could get inside easy enough when the time came. And I had him on his own. At last.
This is my hotel. Cabby, it's damn dark here.
Now, Enoch Drebber.
Huh?
Who am I?
What? What do you mean? Who are you? I don't know you. I've never seen.
I'd always known that vengeance would be sweet, gentlemen. But I'd never hoped for the contentment of soul that I felt at that moment. It was like madness. The pulses in my temples beat like sledgehammers, and I believe I'd have had some sort of fit if the blood hadn't gushed from my nose. And believe me.
Keep away from me, Hope. You're insane.
Look at this ring, Drebber. This is the ring that killed Lucy Ferrier when you forced it on her finger and dragged her off to your shameless harem.
No.
Now look at it. It'll be the last thing you ever do look at.
Would you murder me?
I'm no murderer. We'll let the high God judge between us. There are 2 pills in this box. Choose and eat.
No.
There's death in one and life in the other.
No.
I'll take what you leave.
No.
Choose!
No!
Choose! Let's see if there's justice on the earth or if we're ruled by chance. Now choose! By God, I will murder you where you stand!
Very well. It's done. Now, this one's for me.
I've beaten you, Jefferson Hope. Justice on earth. I'll watch you die like the stinking rat you are.
That's how Enoch Drebber came to his end. Blood was still streaming from my nose, but I felt light-hearted, mischievous. I wrote up Rock on the wall, with a cigar. And I looked at him for a spell. And then I got out.
When did you discover that you'd lost the ring?
That ring was all I had of my Lucy. I had to have it back. I hadn't gone far. I left the cab on a side street and walked up to the house. Straight into one of your constables.
P.C. John Rance. I fear he will not rise in the force. You pretended to be drunk.
He paid me no heed. All I could think of was that I'd lost Lucy's ring. And I saw your advertisement. Evening paper.
Ah, yes. Who was your accomplice who visited Baker Street?
Accomplice? What's this, Mr. Holmes?
Why haven't you mentioned this before?
The zeal of the official force, Watson? This is not relevant to your inquiries, Gregson. I'll wager the man had nothing to do with the killings.
Nothing. Nothing. I swear it. Now, Mr. Holmes, I can tell you my secrets, but I don't get other people into trouble. But I think you'll own he did it smartly.
Not a doubt of that.
Let's get back to the matter in hand here. Joseph Stangerson wasn't poisoned. He was stabbed to the heart.
He begged me for his life. Cried like a woman. Told me I had no quarrel with him. He hadn't touched the girl. Only killed her father. He wouldn't take his chance with the pills. He went for my throat. It was self-defense. The outcome would have been the same in any case. But Providence would never have allowed his guilty hand to pick out anything but the poison. And that's the whole of my story. You may consider me to be a murderer, but I say I'm just as much an officer of justice as you are.
I still find it hard to believe. If someone had said to me 2 weeks ago that I was going to find myself caught up in a murder investigation, what an extraordinary affair.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes, it's even more extraordinary than you know.
Hmm?
Look at this. It's from Gregson. Arrived just before dinner.
Good Lord. That's incredible. He must have died while we were actually on the way back here.
He hung on to life until his story was told.
Power of the mind. Amazing.
Making his statement was as important to him as exacting his revenge.
You really think so?
Oh, yes, yes. What other reason could he have had for giving himself up?
What did you say?
Oh, Watson, think. Wiggins led Hope to the very same rooms where, not 12 hours before, his accomplice had been given a patently false wedding ring. He must have known it was a trap.
He fought like a cornered tiger.
Oh, what a picturesque vocabulary you do possess. Well, perhaps it was bravado. Perhaps his nerve failed him at the last. I don't know. But you recall what he said? Mm-hmm. Almost as soon as we reached the yard.
Yes. Yes. Wait a moment. Here. I knew I'd made a note of it. I don't care how soon I go, but I should like to leave an account of this affair behind me. I don't want to be remembered as a common cutthroat.
I don't want to be remembered as a common cutthroat. He came here knowing he would almost certainly be arrested because he desperately wanted his story on record. All that. 20 years. For a woman.
Holmes?
Gregson and Lestrade will be furious at his death. Where will their grand advertisement be now, huh? I wouldn't have missed this business for anything.
What was it you called it? A study in scarlet.
Yes, I must have been in one of my more lurid moods.
I'm enormously grateful to you for allowing me to be in on it.
Well, I only hope it hasn't placed too great a strain on your health.
By no means. I feel better this evening than I have for months.
Well, I'm delighted to hear it. A helping of the bizarre is always invigorating, I think.
I meant what I said, you know. You really have made an exact science out of detective work. Compared to you, Gregson and Lestrade are like blind men. Your merits should be publicly recognised. You ought to publish an account of the whole affair.
If you won't, I'll do it for you. Huh? I'd no idea you went in for writing. I thought your literary activities were confined to compiling lists of my shortcomings.
Please, let's not go through that again. I didn't know you then.
And now you do.
Come on. A study in scarlet. I'll make a marvellous story. It has adventure, suspense, romance, everything. Well, what do you say?
I say, come in, Mrs. Hudson.
The evening papers, gentlemen. Special late edition.
Oh, thank you. Just throw them down somewhere.
I shall do no such thing. There you are. Nice and tidy. Good evening, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson.
You shouldn't tease her. She's a good woman.
A good woman. I was once introduced to a woman universally praised for her charity work amongst the poor. She subsequently proved to have dispatched 3 wealthy husbands by methods I will not relate so soon after your consumption of Mrs. Hudson's baked apple dumplings.
I'm most grateful. Look, what were you about to say? Holmes, what's wrong?
Listen to this. The public have lost a sensational treat through the sudden death of the suspected murderer Jefferson Hope.
That news got out quickly.
Gregson and Lestrade. I might have known they'd find a way to transmute their failure into success and their mediocrity into genius. They couldn't wait to parade themselves before their adoring public and soak up its applause.
Oh, now, come on.
It is an open secret that the credit for the capture of this vicious and dangerous criminal belongs entirely to the well-known Scotland Yard officials, Messrs. Lestrade and Gregson. The man was apprehended.
Well?
Yeah. Read it for yourself.
The man was apprehended in the rooms of a certain Mr. Sherlock Holmes, who, under their instruction, has himself shown some small talent as an amateur detective. Under their instruction.
Keep reading.
With such teachers, Mr. Holmes may well hope, in the fullness of time, to attain some degree of their skill and professional expertise.
Didn't I tell you so before we started?
This is outrageous.
I'm going to bed.
This whole report is a downright tissue of lies. I've a good mind to go straight round to Fleet Street and demand that they publish a retraction when they've heard my version of the facts.
Watson?
Yes?
Why don't you put these newfound energies to more productive use?
I beg your pardon?
Write your book, Doctor. Write your book.
That was part 2 of A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, dramatised in 2 parts by Bert Coules, with Clive Merrison as Sherlock Holmes and Michael Williams as Dr. John Watson. Jefferson Hope was played by Shane Rimmer, Joseph Stangerson by Matt Zimmerman, Enoch Drebber by Ed Bishop, Inspector Lestrade by Donald G., and Inspector Gregson by John Moffat. Peter Carlyle played Brigham Young, Alice Arnold, Lucy, Christopher Good, John Ferrier, Alan Dean, Wiggins, Anna Cropper, Mrs. Hudson, Marcia King, Madame Charpentier, Jane Slavin, Alice, and John Bull, Stangerson Sr. Other parts were played by members of the cast. The violinist was Alexander Balanescu. A Study in Scarlet was directed by Ian Cottrell and produced by David Johnston.